And what a dummy! Welcome back to the Fantasy Rugby Draft Podcast. Thanks for downloading and listening. I'm Bruce Wilkinson, and joining me in the booth again today is the man primarily made of moss, Nathan Mossman. How are you?
I'm very well.
How's the crown sit for being named New Zealander of the Year? I'm pretty sure I read that right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Did you know it's actually a three-peat of titles for me too? So, I don't know, does 3 wins mean I get to keep the trophy, or do I get to keep the whole country?
One or t'other, mate, one or t'other.
Nice.
It's the 19th of Feb. It's the last podcast before Draft to get in. If someone has a better name for the last weekend before Super Rugby, when everyone drafts their fantasy teams, then please send them in, because that's a pretty poor attempt. In this pod, we're going to go through the New Zealand squads. We had hoped to have Scotty Stevenson on the pod, and we still hope to, so perhaps he'll chime in, but we thought we'd crack through it and get something out before the weekend anyway. A little bit of admin. You can follow us on Twitter at Fantasy Rug Draft. That's Fantasy RUG Draft, or on Facebook. If you have any questions as well, just drop us a note at support@fantasyrugbydraft.com. Reviews. It'd be great if we could get your reviews on iTunes as well. That's how we kind of get noticed. That's how we get listeners. That's how we kind of spread the word. And I don't think they actually have reviews on SoundCloud. I think it's just favourites or liking stuff. So get amongst that. A couple of notes on the draft as well. Please join up 2 hours before the draft, before the league drafts. Even if you do nothing else, if you do no research, just join up, because after the clock hits that 2 hour lock, we can't do anything about it. You've missed out from your draft. You've missed out for the league for the season, and it's just an absolute tragedy. We see it far too frequently, people leaving it to the last minute, so please join that draft before the 2 hour lock. And if anything funky in the draft happens, usually, a refresh does actually fix it. So right, let's crack into New Zealand teams. Let's look at the carryover champs first up, I guess. The Highlanders, Mossman, not many questions in the back three. I think the only question or the note I had here was, we're not going to see any resting of Ben Smith, are we?
I don't see why you would. And other than that, yeah, they sort of picked themselves. So, yeah, you've heard something about resting, or is this just theorising a little bit? Just
theorising. I know he's been used a lot, but there wasn't an end of season tour last year, and the boys had a bit of a break, so I think that there's no risk there either.
No, and I don't think he went to Hong Kong either with the squad.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yep.
So, should be back on deck, I would have thought.
I guess the main question in that back line is, so, a bit of a shame, Richard Buckman injured the Barracuda, did his shoulder and out for the season. I don't think you can replace his kind of locker room glue, if you will. He seems to be one that kind of pulls the squad together. But who is literally going to take that 12 spot? The options are Treeby or Emery, but I guess also Rob Thompson's in the mix coming down from Canterbury. If you were to kind of, I guess we haven't really seen too much of which way it's going to go yet from Jamie Joseph, but which way would you go? Or which one for fantasy purposes would you lean towards?
Yeah, I think that's probably the more relevant part, and my thinking is, of the three, the only one I would draft is Thompson, because I'm not looking at the other two from a fantasy point of view, so it's almost like, who's the replacement? It doesn't matter, because I'm not going to draft anyone other than Thompson. So if you want to take a chance on Thompson, you do. Otherwise, you're pretty much leaving that alone from a fantasy perspective.
Totally agree. Treeby and Emery, as far as I'm concerned, are just another player.
Yeah.
You should be able to pick up. Actually, from the drafts I've seen, they haven't been drafted. It's just, I think you can pick up him, either those two on the waiver wire or a similar type player on the waiver wire.
Yep.
As a side note, I don't know if folks follow Malachi Fekitoa on Instagram, but I didn't think that he could get any more cut or shredded in preparation for a Super Rugby season than last year, but it turns out I was wrong. That guy is chiseled from marble. Goodness gracious. Anyway, that's nothing to do with fantasy, but straight into Liam Squire then. Is he going to be number 8?
Looks that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think he'll go straight in for Nasi Manu, similar type player. and he looked pretty good in the one game that I've seen against Racing. Apart from that, it's a fairly settled team. I guess the one question I had as well was around, another question I had was around they love their poster board material, don't they? Their changing room, their catch cries. And last year it was the nobody believes in us. But that's going to have to be hung up and retired now because they won. So is it going to be, they said we couldn't repeat, or this one's for Jamie, or have you got a better one?
I don't have a better one, but maybe they can listen to this and use this as motivation, because I actually think they might. I definitely think there'll be a bit of a drop-off. I think that the level they got to last season was perhaps, I'm not saying it was lucky, but I'm just saying it was, the planets seemed to align. Mm-hmm. They've lost Manu, they've lost Hardy, who I think were pretty key members of that forward pack, especially with Manu being the captain and having such a high work rate. So, I almost feel like it's a Leicester City type case where I'm waiting for the wheels to fall off, and that didn't happen last year, but at some point I'm just wondering whether, I mean, it won't fall off completely, obviously, but I'd still be very surprised to see them back in the final, and I think the bookies would probably agree with me.
Yeah, I agree. I think so as well. It takes a lot to, as you said, the planets had to align. Is there anyone from the Highlanders that you're avoiding, or any sleepers that you see there on the Highlanders?
Not particularly. I think that, Fekitoa is a known quantity, but I also do think that he'll probably bounce back a little bit to what he was in the first season, as opposed to last season, where he's probably slightly disappointing. So, yeah, obviously not a sleeper, but I think one to watch. And the other guys, we know all about them, and Patrick Osborne's not a sleeper either, because he's also a non-quantity, but just one of those guys that, can come under the radar a little bit and might slip a little bit in drafts, and he could be someone that you could wait on and pick him up perhaps a little bit later on. We've talked a little bit of strategy in the past, and he might be someone that you could go to after you've picked up maybe one or two of the top midfielders.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Okay, let's move up the country to the Crusaders. I guess everyone wants to know who's going to play that fly half position. If pre-season's any sort of indication, it's been Richie Mwanga's gig. And it is looking a little bit likely to be that as well going into the season. I've changed my tune a little bit. I think, put it this way, I'm not drafting Marty McKenzie. I had a draft last night where I picked up Mwanga in the 7th round, and I think that's fairly good value, because it looks to be, from what Blackhead is doing, is that it's going to be Mwanga's gig, because there was thought that maybe McKenzie might play at fullback, but Havili's been taking up that spot as well. Is that how you see it as well?
This one really is, it's really unclear to me, and I think I'm sort of staying clear of it, and I definitely defer to your opinion on it, because you're a bit closer to the Crusaders than I am, obviously. So, yeah, if that's what you're thinking, then I'll agree.
So me personally, as a Crusaders fan, I thought Richie Mwanga is the better player, the better prospect, the better future for us, and I thought this is probably a pretty good time to put him in. Manny McKenzie seems like he's not an old person. He's not old either, but I just thought that if we go with Mwanga, but I wondered if Todd Blackadder would go with the experience of Marty McKenzie, but from everything I've seen and read, it looks like it might actually be Mwanga. So let me frame it. What I did in my draft, though, as well, is that I waited quite significantly. That was my first fly half, and then in the next kind of 6 or 7 rounds, I picked up 2 other pretty decent fly halves, but not rock stars. I picked up Robert Dupree and John O'Lance. So kind of at any one point in time, one of those guys is going to be playing fairly well. So Israel Dagg mid-April. I had got written in my notes here, Havili and Nadoli in the midfield, whilst Crotty and Fruin are injured, but the midfield looks to be Sean Wainui and Kieran Fonatere, and that's been backed up in the last couple of games, so it looks like they're probably going to go into the season with that and against the Chies. What do you think?
Good news for Nadolo, but from a fantasy point of view, not drafting either of those 2 guys. Yeah, definitely not. And then, of course, you got other guys coming back from injury anyway. So I would have thought at this stage of the season where there aren't many injuries, there's no way you're going near Wainui and Fonatere anyway.
That's right. I couldn't agree more. One question I had was around Cody Taylor and Ben Fennell. So I know the All Blacks have obviously said Cody Taylor is the future. I'm not sure that the future is now in terms of Todd Blackadder's mind. I think he thinks Ben Fennell might be that player, but I wonder if there's going to be a changing of the guard this season and going to Cody Taylor. I guess from fantasy perspective, I think it has an impact on the Crusaders front row because Cody Taylor does play a lot looser and he does play very Dane Colsey-ish type, and I think that makes the Crusaders front row more valuable. You got any opinion on whether Blackadder will go with Cody or Fennell?
I don't have an opinion on it, no, but the Crusaders front row hasn't really been a force from a fantasy perspective. So, and that was with Cody Taylor playing. So, I mean, it's only going to get worse, but it's not a front row that you're probably looking to draft. Unless it's very late. Maybe just take a sort of wait and see approach, and if they look good through the first couple of games, then it might be something that you'd look at.
So I picked up the Brumbies because the Crusaders were gone in the last round, and if I don't get the Hurricanes or the Jaguares, I'm waiting to the last round effectively to pick up whoever is available, and I usually rate it the Crusaders and then the Brumbies. The Brumbies only because there are some slight changes to the mauling laws in that. And they were quite vocal about how late these changes in laws come in. You can't bind in front of the swimmer now, where he swims back. You can't bind in front of the ball, which has always been a rule, but they're just pretty loose around the maul. They're pretty relaxed about how it happens. But we've still seen tries from Bon Prinsloo from mauls in the pre-season, so I just did see a score. So that was a long way about saying I did see a score from a maul from Stephen Moore. And it just kind of registered in my mind to think maybe the Brumbies are going a different way, but I don't know. Tafur, Reid and Todd, those are the loose forwards for the Crusaders, you think?
I think so, yep.
Yeah, I think so as well. Any more for the Crusaders? Any sleepers? Anyone you're avoiding? I mean, you've mentioned who you are avoiding. Is there anyone in there that you're targeting apart from a Ndolo in that first round?
Not particularly. I'm kind of interested in the Alice versus Drummond battle. It is halfbacks, and obviously, we're not crazy about halfbacks generally anyway, but they obviously like Drummond. You'll have a better idea than I do. So I just wonder whether he is a genuine kind of threat to Alice, or whether the fact they'll end up cancelling each other out.
Yep, I don't have an answer for that. I can't read Blackadder on this occasion. Actually, I can't read Blackadder full stop. But for this particular position, I haven't seen one way or the other. I do know that Drummond is pretty well liked in the team. I think he's picked up the Ian Bell moniker of the Shermanator. But yeah, I guess we'll see how that pans out. For either, if you knew one way or the other, which way it would go, which would be your preference? Who do you think's got a bit of fantasy output, Alice or Drummond?
I think Alice has sort of put up a few scores in the past, so I think the potential is there.
He went okay last season. There was a good 5 or 6 round stretch there where he was actually really solid. Yep,
for sure.
Okay, let's go into the Hurricanes. I guess everyone's burning question is who's going to play in that midfield. If I asked you at the 19th of February, Mossman, who's going to play in the midfield for the Hurricanes starting?
It's a tricky one. I think Peter Aki will probably get a look in, and the talk seems to be that Laumapi will be there as well. It's not really based on too much. Halaholo, by all accounts, when he came on as a replacement for Proctor, played pretty well. And I liked the look of Halaholo in ITM Cup last year. So it's another situation where there's not a lot of clarity. Vince Asso, I think, is playing in the preseason game this week. So I honestly don't think we'll know for certain until that team for week 1 gets named.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, and another factor that complicates it as well is that Laumapi and Vince Asso are actually classified as outside backs in fantasy rugby drafts. So it makes it very difficult to you don't really want to be playing having your outside back playing in the midfield. It's not an ideal scenario. I mean, Alapati, what was his name?
Leua.
Yeah, Lower. Yeah, that's right. Way back when was pretty decent, but apart from that, I wonder. Yeah, I'm staying away, I guess, is the short answer, because unless it's Matt Proctor who comes back from injury, there's not really any midfielders that you want to put there.
Yep.
Any problems for Milner Scudder? You've mentioned you wondered if there was a slight drop back for him. Where do you have him as outside backs? What number?
I think. Just let me look this up. I mean, it'll be high. I mean, we can safely assume that. I had him as my number 3.
Yeah.
Yep, but just behind Falau and Nadolo. But they're interchangeable. We've discussed that before. Don't have a problem with any of those guys. And I'm not particularly worried about a sophomore slump with him either. I just think, having gone from ITM Cup to Super Rugby to the All Blacks and scoring a try in a World Cup final, I actually think what we need to be asking is the game of rugby union under its current laws just too easy for him? And should they be changed? I think that's the question. So, it's a little bit similar to the West Indies cricket team, when they come up with the one bouncer rule, just effectively to level that playing field. I just wonder if there'll be a Milner Scudder rule, like perhaps something that, like, he can't score. So we could see a sort of situation where he's running around in the in goal like touch rugby trying to find somebody to pass to. So that could be interesting.
Yeah, that was always a favourite of mine. I didn't do any work. I just followed that guy around from dummy half that couldn't score.
Yeah,
just kind of sniffing out the try.
Yeah.
Adi Savir, you've got him as number 2, I believe, as your loose forwards. You're not shying away from any sevens work or any preparations or those 2 rounds that he might be away from?
No, I think we've got some clarity, and I'm pretty comfortable with that.
Okay. We don't really know yet if it's Blade Thompson at lock or at 6, do we? I saw a note this morning that James Broadhurst has got some concussion issues from last season that are still knocking about, and he's likely not to play in the first few weeks. So I guess maybe that puts Thompson back at lock. I don't know. What are your thoughts there? Have you had a chance to think about that?
No, I haven't, but I did. It's a name I noted just because when I was looking through at the podcast league, and it was something we didn't bring up. He wasn't drafted, which I thought was pretty interesting, because he was, when he was in the team, was one of the, the best guys at lock that you could actually have last year. Just so much potential there. So, and of course part of that was because he was playing 6, so he was, got in the loose a little bit more. But I think the potential's still there, so I think he's still worth drafting. He's going to be better than most locks. Yeah,
agreed. Is Bowden Barrett's backup Terry Black, or is it James Marshall? If you've got the number 1 pick, and obviously you need to handcuff one of you guys, you'd say Terry Black?
I think so, yeah.
That's if you were handcuffing. Now the second question is, would you handcuff? Or would you grab a Robert Dupree, John O'Lance, Peter Granty, Elgar Watts type player?
Sure. In that case, I'm probably going for one of those guys, like the Robert Dupree type guys. And the fact that we're actually having this conversation and asking the question, is it Black or is it Marshall, means that it's not clear. If there's not a clear handcuff, then there's really no point in handcuffing. Yeah. So I'd probably go down the other route. There'll be other fly halves, obviously, that do have a clear handcuff, but in this situation, you're better off going for that, the Dupree, 2CPC kind of guys.
Okay. Hurricanes, that's a wrap for them. You got anyone you're avoiding or anyone you're targeting that you haven't mentioned?
Not so much anyone that I'm targeting or avoiding, but there's often a lot of talk about Savia when he comes back at the start of the season, and he's actually interesting. Like, I know he's not someone who's off the radar, but I guess he's, in terms of rankings, towards the bottom of the tier that we're talking about, but I have no qualms at all about picking him up. I actually saw the try he scored in that preseason game last week where he ran, a good good distance of the field, and no one got a hand on him. So no concerns about the shape that he's coming into the season in.
Did he finish it with a dab?
Yeah, I think because it was in Ekitahuna that the camera they were using couldn't actually pick up. They couldn't rotate that far down. They
Sure.
weren't using the A team equipment, I think.
Right, gotcha. I will say that I do like that we're slowly seeing pre-season a bit more coverage. I know the Chiefs Blues game's on Sky Sports tonight, and I like that. At least it gives an opportunity for folks in New Zealand. I know in South Africa some of them as well, and in Australia they're streaming some of them. I think it's only a matter of time before some of those actually get syndicated and are brought on as part of it as well. Just like the NFL does, right? That pre-season is actually probably more important because that's your one chance for all fantasy owners to get an insight of what your player that you think might be going to play well, whether he is or not. That's the last time you'll see him in action before you have to pull the trigger in a draft.
Yeah, I mean, from a fantasy perspective, like you say, it's huge, and it means that you're not taking a trip down to Ekatahuna or into a paddock somewhere in Southland to watch a preseason.
That's right. That's right. And it is
not that there's anything wrong with either of those places.
No, that's true. Fred Booth's paddock. There's a lot of talk about that. But I guess you're in two camps, right? You see two camps. You see a lot of we need to watch this, get it on TV, more rugby's better. And then you see the other side of it, which is, oh God, Lambie's out for the season, Pollard's out for the season, that type of thing. I guess just on that as well, Lambie out for 3 months, last I heard.
Yeah, I saw the 12 weeks, yep.
Yeah, that's ugly. Right, moving on to the Chiefs, your favoured Chiefs. So I don't think we were a little bit on the fence last week around who was going to play fullback. Damien McKenzie's been named in this last pre-season game. I'm a little bit more confident that he does have that 15 job. Are you? Yeah,
well, the thing about the back three, and it got me thinking, and perhaps I think from ourselves at Fantasy Rugby Draft Towers, we may have taken our eye off the ball a little bit, because I've been looking to try and figure out if Tim Nana-Williams is actually in the Chiefs squad.
I know.
And as far as I can tell, he's not. He doesn't have a player profile on the site. He hasn't been named in any of the preseason squads. And he's listed in a section on Wikipedia amongst transfers as having left the Chiefs and gone to Japan. I'm starting to wonder whether he's actually in the team at all.
So, to that end, I've been chatting to friend of the podcast, Justin Pivus, who's been doing quite a bit of research on this as well, via Instagram and via Twitter. Apparently he is in the team. Apparently there was a fee for him to be released for the Sevens that hasn't been paid. He's contracted with the Chiefs, but he is on holiday. So he's coming back from Japan, or he was supposed to be in Japan at some point, but he was on a beach somewhere on an Instagram photo with a cocktail was the last that Justin said he saw. So I believe he's going to come, and I believe he's still playing, which is why because at that point I was going to drop him down, and we were thinking about removing him from the rankings, but by all accounts we haven't had anything concrete. As you say, just like you said, that we don't know anything yet. So yeah, left him in there, could well be starting, might not even be in the team. Do what you want with that, Kuchar. I know you drafted Tim Nano. Good luck to you.
Yeah, I thought that actually amused me a little bit, because we were so concerned about him being injury prone and dropping down the rankings, and then of all people to pick him up, Kuchar. So yeah, hopefully Kuchar's following his Instagram account and enjoying those photos of him with the cocktails at the beach. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So. Do you think it'll be McKenzie, Lowe, and maybe the Fish, Glenn Fasai'i?
I do. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I think the Fish will get a shot with no Tim Nana-Williams there.
And we talked about the midfield. It's there's all talk of Sonny Bill going away, but you think it'll be Ngatai, Sonny Bill?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I think Ngatai's a lock.
Yep.
He's one of the senior figures in the team and pretty highly regarded all over the country now. And Sonny Bill, there's Sonny Bill. If he's there, he's going to get picked.
Yeah, so going back to just a DMAC, just to put a bookend on it. So I suspect I will move him up into round 3 now. I would prefer him over the likes of Andreas Coetzee, Willie LaRue, Henry Spate, Joe Tamani. All of those guys I'd have DMAC ahead of.
Yep, sure.
Jalen Artai's got to be an All Black conversation, right?
I would have thought so, yeah. We use when we talk about it. Does that count for anything? Obviously, our conversations carry a lot of weight in New Zealand rugby, so that's got to count for something.
Absolutely. Aaron Cruden, this is his first trot out. I guess I've got a question here. Back from the knee, how confident are you? But I guess you'll see tonight. Yeah,
we'll see. And if you follow the narrative that you always get, he'll come back stronger and fitter and all those things that they always say at the end of these knee injuries. So, I'm sure he'll be fine.
Conscious of time, so anything more from your Chiefs? What do you expect from them? Who do you think, is there someone in there we're missing? I know the loose forward trio is a little bit loose at the moment. Sorry for the double use of the same word.
Yeah. Interesting that Weber was picked for this last pre-season game. Obviously, we don't read too much into the selections, but it's a bit of a shame because I think they're two. Him and Kurbalo, both really good players and could both be really good in fantasy. But this could just be a repeat of last season where it was Weber and Pulu kind of cancelling each out, or both actually having value. So we'll have to see which it is.
Did you see any of the highlights of the game last week of Kurbalo?
No, but I did read about it, and they said he was pretty good.
Oh, man. There was a couple of behind-the-back passes he did. I've been fairly critical of him in the past from a passing perspective, not necessarily from an organisation and from a around-the-ruck kind of perspective, but certainly just from a passing perspective. But some of it's just globetrotterish, behind the back, over the shoulder, but it went straight to the man, hit him in the numbers. It was just very, very impressive. He looks like he's potentially got a big season ahead as long as he can stay away from Brad Weber, who was on The Crowd Goes Wild actually the other night, and they were taking the piss out of him because he's been spending a lot of time in the gym, and he likes talking about spending a lot of time in the gym.
Well, he kind of needed to. He was not a big dude.
No, that's right. But
as long as he hasn't lost any of his speed, though, because that was one of his key assets. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, he's got a big shelf anyway at the moment. Let's move into the Blues. So interesting back three that was named. I personally thought this would be the back three: Visanier, Nanai, Vi, and Lamb. I know Duffy was in that discussion last time, and a lot of the media seem to think that Duffy is the favourite for 15, but I know you drafted Visanier in the league, so you obviously think he's going to play somewhere?
I do, yeah. I think Visanier's got to be in the team. I think he's obviously one of their better players and has been one of the better performers in fantasy. And there's also aspects to it that you don't think about. Obviously, you see Lamb lighting it up in sevens, but the things that Visanier's got a big boot on him, got a really good kicking game, so obviously those are things that count more in 15s, and I just think that he's someone that needs to be in the team, so I think he'll play regardless of what happens with Duffy, but the Duffy thing also, obviously got a lot of media coverage. It's a good story, ex-Melbourne Storm player, hometown boy coming home, all that kind of stuff, but we don't know for sure at this point, so I'm still pretty confident about Visanier, but I'm not 100% about anybody else, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Moving into the midfield, we probably don't need to talk about Moala and Renegade. They're top second round picks. They're in there.
Not for me.
You don't put Renegade in there?
Not Ranger. No, okay. I'm not a bigger fan as you are and some others are. Okay. And I guess I've got certain concerns about pairing two of them together, two guys that really like contact, and I'm wondering if that won't be so great for the outside backs, especially considering that Tana wasn't exactly known for his deft handling either, was he? So
no, that's right. I did think that. We had that conversation with the Hurricanes, right? Having two similar players playing in the midfield, but that doesn't seem to be the same kind of discussion around the Moala Renegade. So I guess we'll see.
Yep, we will see. Yep.
Bryn Hall, your higher west.
Yep.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's an easy one.
I guess one question around the loose forwards is Luatua going to be the odd man out? Is Akira going to start? Because obviously JK is captain, Jerome Kaino. So then it's one of those two, Luatua or Akira Ioane.
Yep. Well, I think Luatua will be the odd one out. Obviously can't play as an open side flanker, and they're pretty stacked, and they've got the captain at 6 and Akira at 8, so yeah, he could be.
Interesting. it's a shame. You know, I read an article the other day about him talking about wanting a bounce back, and you know, he's in the All Blacks for 14 tests or something like that. And don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. Maybe they manage minutes with Ikura. Not sure. Maybe it's horses for courses. Not sure either. A lot of buzz around the team. You're pumping the brakes?
Yeah, a little bit. I want to see it first.
I think so too.
You know, I'd sort of change the manager, but as a core group of players, it's the same. And I just wonder if they'll have the same problems. Yeah,
indeed. Okay. That's pretty much it for the Blues. You got anyone you haven't mentioned so far that you want to avoid or targeting?
No, I think we've pretty much covered it.
Okay. All right. Cool. A little bit of admin. You can follow us on Twitter at Fantasy Rug Draft. It's Fantasy OG Draft, or drop us a note on support at fantasyrugbydraft.com. There's plenty of them that come through at this time of the year. It's great. Also, can you do us a little bit of a favour? We have a problem with junk mail at the moment, so if you could add us as a contact, either the no reply or the support email address. That's the way Google learns that we're not spam. Doesn't particularly like the fantasy name in our company, but hey ho. I have one more question for you, Mossman, before we duck off. But pick one: Elton Yanchteys, Elton John, Elton Flatley, or Michael Flatley.
Michael Flatley. Good
Michael
feet.
Flatley.
Yeah, quick feet.
Yeah, quick feet. Okay, that's about all the time we have for today. In the next pod, we're going to prepare for Game Week 1 of Fantasy Rugby Draft. Good luck to you, everyone out there in your drafts. Good luck to you, Mossman. I know you've got a couple this weekend too.
Indeed.
Thanks for listening. I'm Bruce Wilkinson. He's Nathan Mossman.
It's Sir Nathan to you.
Thank you.